All right, lesson 113 is on the inch scale, which is the measurement on the U.S. customary system that we generally use on a ruler, and then the metric system. So on your ruler, I don't have one with me for some reason. One side is going to have inches and one side is going to have centimeters. Inches are a part of the U.S. customary system, and centimeters are part of the metric system, which the rest of the world uses. And for some reason, we use inches and then centimeters. It doesn't really make any sense. But we're going to start with the inch scale. So the inch scale, here is an illustration that shows what's going on between the 0 and the 1. So there's a lot of little tick marks. There's 16 tick marks. An inch is broken up into 16 parts generally on a ruler. The easy ones are like the half, the quarter, and the 3/4. And then everything in between is a little bit sometimes can be confusing for some kids. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about that and talk about where we get all these numbers from. So here is 0, here is 1, here is a 1/2 inch, and then we have a 1/4 inch, we have 3/4 inches, and then we have an 1/8, we have 3/8, we have 5/8, we have 7/8, and then in between those we have 1/16. And you're probably saying to yourself, why do all of these numbers have different denominators? And this is all really confusing. But this is one of those disciplines that you will carry on into adulthood, and you should know as an adult when you're taking measurements, because it will matter. So what I want you guys to understand, and I'm going to post this on Edmodo for you guys to print out and keep with in your math journals or your math notebooks. This is broken up into 16 parts. So technically this is 1/16. 1/8 is technically 2/16. But because we're so mature and good in our math ways, we know that 2/16 reduces to what? That's right, 1/8. And then the next tick mark is 3/16. We can't reduce that. And the next tick mark is 4/16. But we know that reduces to, you got it, 1/4. 5/16. Then we get 6/16, which can reduce to 3/8, right? They share a factor of 2. 7/16. And then we get 8/16, and we know that 8/16 reduces to a 1/2, and so on and so forth through the inch ruler. Now, of course, this is super confusing because we get 16/8, 16/4, 16/8, 16/2, 16/8, 16/4, 16/8, 16/1. Because when we have 16 out of 16, we have 1 whole inch, correct? So that's kind of the explanation behind the inch ruler. And why the numbers all look so different and are a little bit crazy. Example 113.1 says, how far is the arrow from the left-handed end of the scale? How far is the... What? Okay, it's taken me 3 starts and stops to understand what this question is trying to say. They just want to know what the measurement is here. So if you look at this ruler, it goes from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4 inches, and then it's 1 tick mark past the 4, which is 1/16 of an inch. So the answer would be 4 and 1/16. And then because we're using measurements, it has to have a unit with it. All right, the next example says, use an inch scale to find the length of this line segment. So you're probably gonna have to have a ruler for this. And I'm also gonna post a practice worksheet for you guys too to practice this a little bit more. But they give you a line, but then they put it on the ruler for you. So if we look at this ruler, we have 1 inch, 2 inch. We don't yet make it to 3 inches, okay? So then we have to count between 2 and 3 to see what fraction of an inch we have. So I'm going to write a 2 down because we have 2 whole inches. We have 2 1/2, 2 3/4, and then next to 3/4 is the mark 3/16. So we have 2 3/16 of an inch. Use this printout to calculate your tiny tick marks. Tiny tick marks, that was cute. All right, let's look at the next practice problem. Now we're jumping to the metric scale. Now, the metric scale is much easier to work with. Go figure. The rest of the world uses it, we don't. The metric scale is all based on those ones and zeros. It's a base 10 measuring scale from 0 centimeters to 1 centimeter. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10. Sorry, that would be 10. 10 marks. Okay, so a centimeter is broken up into 10 pieces, which each little one is called a millimeter. So centimeters, now they're asking us to measure certain things by centimeters. So the arrow is pointing, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 whole centimeters. We haven't yet made it to 5, and so we need to count how many tick marks we're at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're at 4 and 7 out of 10, or 7/10 of a centimeter. So you can write it 4 and 7/10 of a centimeter, but most people will write 4.7 centimeters. These things say the same thing, 4 and 7/10, 4 and 7/10, okay? Let's look at the next question. It says use a metric scale to measure the length of this segment. They give you the ruler in the book. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole centimeters. So I'm going to write that 5 down. And then we have 1, 2, 3 tick marks. So we have 3 out of the 10 that we need for another whole. Or we would say 5 and 3/10 centimeters. All right. Next question. Oh, the next is the practice. So inches, remember for inches that it's broken up into 16 parts. Each part is 1/16. As they add, we get fractions that we will need to reduce. Use this scale and see that pattern there, 16/8, 16/4, 16/8, 16/2. Okay, and then it repeats. I'm going to upload this worksheet for you guys to practice a little bit more because they don't give you a ton of practice. And then with centimeters, remember it's really easy. From 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, everything is broken up into 10 sections. So each of these is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, okay? And so on and so forth, which means that if you're going to write it as a decimal, your numerator will just be your first place value after the decimal, right? Because that's our 10th place. If you have any questions, please let me know.